welcome back. I'm Elizabeth from awellpurposedwoman.com. If it's your first time joining us, thank you so much for being here. And don't forget to hit that little red subscribe button, and that way we can just keep in touch. But let's get started on making these beautiful fall crafts. So the first craft we're going to be working on are velvet mushrooms. Now, I was so excited when I saw this little package of mushrooms at the Dollar Tree. I've been wanting to do mushrooms for some time, but haven't sat down to actually do them. So when I saw these, I thought they'd be a great base that we could upgrade to some nice mushrooms for fall. So I'm going to start by just tracing around this scrap of velvet with this Tupperware lid, and I'm going to cut out a circle, which I'm going to glue to the top of my mushroom. Now, this doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to cut a circle that's several inches larger on each of the sides than the top of the mushroom. And you can use a scrap fabric for this. I'm using these velvet scraps that I had left over from making velvet pumpkins. If you've never made velvet pumpkins, I'll leave a link down below for how to do that. You can make gorgeous pumpkins for fall, but you also can make these really cute little mushrooms. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So I'm just going to hot glue my fabric on the underside of this little mushroom. And it's nothing fancy. I'm just dabbing hot glue on it and then just tucking in the fabric and kind of trying to make it lay nicely so that it gives us a nice little cinch look on the underside of the mushroom. Now we're going to work on the base of our mushroom. So I just have this old sweater, and we're going to cover the base of the mushroom with this cream colored sweater. So I'm just going to cut off a piece of the sweater sleeve, and then I'm going to hot glue that around the top of the base and just make a cute little sweater base for our velvet top mushroom. And you can use a variety of things. You could paint these. You could use birch bark. You know, I actually like to pick up birch bark as I go around, and I'm going to make one of them with this birch bark, but you could use a sweater. You could use corn husk. You could use, twine or anything you wanted to fill in this base of the mushroom. But I'm going to use the sweater, and I'm just hot gluing it into place. I just cut it down to the right size, and then I'm just hot gluing it on to the base, and it's going to give us a really cute and cozy look for fall. And I think this cream color will look nice with the olive green velvet top. And around the bottom, I'm just squishing the sweater together and hot gluing it so that the seam or the line where they meet is really not that visible. And then once I have my sweater all the way hot glued, I'm just going to take more hot glue and I'm going to attach the bottom to the top of the pumpkin. I've been doing so many pumpkins, but mushroom this time, and hot glue that back into place. So there you go. That's all there is to upgrading these cute little mushrooms. I think they look adorable and so much higher quality with the velvet and the sweater material. So I'm just going to quickly do a red one and a mustard one as well, but it's the exact same process. Just trace around your velvet, cut it out, and then embellish it however you want. And on this red one, I am going to use the birch bark that I found outside, and I'm just wrapping that around the base, and then I'm going to glue the red velvet on top of it. And that's a super cute look as well. I think they're both adorable and really cute for fall and Christmas. I'm going to quickly finish a mustard mushroom as well, but I also want to mention a cute little addition you could add to these are just some white pins on the top of the mushrooms, and that just looks like little spots on the mushrooms. You can see on the red one here, I did it a little bit. I would add even more if I had them, but that's just a cute addition to make these sweet little mushrooms for fall. Let me know what you think of them. I think they turned out really cute, especially if you like gnomes or other Nordic things. These mushrooms will fit right in for fall and Christmas. Now this next craft is a give thanks sign, so I actually am going to start with one of these rounds from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to paint it all black, and I just had chalkboard paint on hand, so that's what I'm going to use. But any black acrylic or chalk paint would work just fine. So we're just going to cover our round with the black paint. Now I don't know if you've seen these at the Dollar Tree. If you have, let me know. I've only seen them a couple of times, but I'm going to take some antiquing wax, and then I'm just going to take this hoop or this round frame, and they have these in the craft section at the Dollar Tree, but they just fit perfectly over the round circles. And so we're going to use this hoop as a frame for our sign, and I'm just going to use that antiquing wax all around it to give it a little bit darker of an appearance. And then we're just going to glue that onto our wood round once it dries. But I'm just using a wood glue, and I'm just using a paintbrush, and I'm just brushing that wood glue on. It's a little neater this way. It doesn't go all over the place, and I can control kind of where the glue goes. And then I'm just going to set it right on top of that round now that my paint is dry. And then I'll take a couple of paperweights or cans of paint and just place it onto the frame until it fully dries, and that will hold it down in place. Now after the paint dried, I did add a little wood filler to that hole on the top. And then I'm going to turn this around. Now it actually was a trick or treat sign that I found that fit the frame the best. So I'm tried to kind of get the trick or treat thing off, but I was afraid it was going to poke a hole through the center. So I actually just covered it with a piece of paper on the back. And then I just took a piece of wire and some wood beads, and I just strung them on to the wire, and that's going to be my hanger. Now the Dollar Tree does sell these little wood beads now. They're really cute and a good find there for $1.25. But I had some on hand already, so I'm using what I have on hand. And then I just tied a knot on each side of my wire, and then I'm going to staple this little bead handle onto the top of my sign. So I just have a forward facing staple gun. I'm just going to staple it to the frame of my sign. And then, like I just showed you, I actually already did cover the back side with the paper. So I'm just going to quickly use some paint and cover up this spot where I added the wood filler so that that goes away and blends in with the rest of the sign. And then we're going to finish the face of our sign. So you could finish this sign in a variety of ways. I actually took these little Scrabble piece holders from the game of Scrabble, and I wood glued them onto the center of my board. Now you could finish the sign with Cricut letters or vinyl letters, or you could just put fall florals or pumpkins or something on it. But I'm taking these little Scrabble placeholder things and I'm gluing them onto the center of the board. And then I'm going to put a little phrase on the board. So I'm going to hold it down for now so that this wood glue dries. I'm going to finish around the other sides of the sign, and then I'm going to go back to the center. But I thought I could use a little bit extra framing, so I took some jute twine from the Dollar Tree and I just hot glued that on the perimeter of my sign right inside the frame. And I really like how that looked and kind of helped to give me a thicker frame for my sign. And then I moved on to add some fall florals to my sign. Now I like these natural looking leaves. I think I actually found these at Walmart, most of these floral picks, and they actually are really affordable as well. A lot of them are $1.25 or around $2 to $3, so very affordable for fall or any season. And I just hot glued those on the bottom of my sign. And then I had a little pumpkin left over from one of my fall floral picks that I hadn't used. And I thought that looked really nice with the black background, the colors of the orange pumpkin. So I just hot glued that into place and then just added a couple other fall floral foliage things to the bottom of my sign. Next, I moved on to the center of the sign. So I decided to put give thanks on the little boards. And so I just hot glued the letters give thanks onto the little, whatever they're called, the board holder pieces thing. Again, if you know, let me know. But I did this because when I held the sign up, the letters kind of fell off, and I didn't want them to be falling off when I'm hanging my sign. So I just took a dab of hot glue on each letter, and it would be really easy to remove this if you wanted to use it for something else. But since there's fall foliage on the bottom as well, I didn't think I was going to be changing it up that much for different seasons, but you could do that as well and then use something more neutral. And then I thought the top could use a little bit of extra oomph to balance with the bottom, so I added some leaves, some raffia, and then I added a little bow to the center of the top of the sign. And I thought this added a really cute little addition to the top and just balanced out nicely with the bottom. And that's all I really did to this sign, but I absolutely love how this turned out. It actually is a very pretty piece. It looks very romantic, very high end. It does not look like it came from the Dollar Tree, and it's just so pretty for fall. I think this is one of my favorite crafts that I did, and I just love that I got all the pieces for less than, a couple dollars. Now for our next craft, we are going to be moving on to some pumpkins. We're going to start with these rectangular wooden pumpkins, and we're going to be upgrading these to a much higher end looking pumpkin. So I'm going to start by removing our leaves, and then we're going to scrape off this middle board in the center of our MDF boards. And if it doesn't come off very easily, what you can do is just take a washcloth and just add some water to it, and that will definitely help to take up some of the glue that's on there, because these are just glued on. So if we use our washcloth, we can easily get that off. Now I'm going to start by cutting off a couple inches on two of the pumpkins. I just took it down to my miter saw and cut it off. And then I'm going to take some chalk paint and I'm going to cover the pumpkins completely with the paint. And that's just going to disguise any pattern or any colors from our pumpkin. I'm going to show you 3 different techniques to redo these pumpkins, and you can decide which one you like the best. The first one we're going to do is just cover the pumpkin with cardstock. So I just traced around the pumpkin with cardstock, cut it out, and then I'm just going to Mod Podge that on both sides of my pumpkin, and that will cover up the pumpkin. Now once that Mod Podge has dried, I actually ended up taking off the little top pumpkin stem square, and I'm going to use a real pumpkin stem instead of that little faux one. And so really you could just use any square piece of wood to make these, because that's what I ended up pretty much doing. But I'm going to take some raffia and just tie that around the stem and then just hot glue that in place. I'm going to hold the stem down just to make sure that it's really well attached. And then I'm just going to take some different ribbons and laces and just hot glue that around the center of my pumpkin. I really like this mustard gold color this fall, so I'm going to use that again on this pumpkin, and I'm just going to hot glue that into place. Now this ribbon was actually like $1 from Hobby Lobby, and it's actually not ribbon but just fabric trim. They sell that in the sewing section, different types of trim, and sometimes it goes really low in price, and that was the case with this. So I'm going to take this boho-y style lace and I'm going to hot glue that on top of my ribbon trim, and it gives it just this nice, pretty feminine look to our pumpkin. And then I'm also going to take one more piece of lace and just add that, layer that on top of the other lace. And I'm going to leave that pumpkin for now and move on to the next pumpkin, which is going to be a sweater pumpkin. So I'm just taking this old piece of sweater that I had left over from making pumpkins again, and I'm going to use that to cover the outside of this pumpkin. Now, one thing I would say, if you can use the sleeve or a portion of the sweater that is kind of already in a tube shape, you could even sew a tube yourself. That would probably be advantageous with covering this pumpkin, because I wanted to cover both sides of it, and I just hot glued it around on all the edges, and then I hot glued another piece on the back side, which worked fine, but it would have been a lot easier if there was already, a tube shape, or like I mentioned, a sweater sleeve would work perfect for this. Just cover the outside of the pumpkin with your sweater material. And then just like the other one, I'm going to take this little stem off. And with our third pumpkin, we're just going to take some chunky yarn and we're going to wrap it around the wooden pumpkin. and we're going to cover it completely with the yarn. And this is just going to be a third look that you could do. So I kept coming up with ideas as I was doing these, and I wanted to show you a variety of options. I love coming up with different ideas for crafts, and sometimes I have so many ideas and I don't want you to miss out on any of them, so I'm just giving you a little bit of each one. It might be cute, you know, to do a set all in the same style as well. Like if you wanted to do the cardstock, just do them all in cardstock, or do them all with sweaters, or a couple with sweaters and one with cardstock, or you know, you wouldn't have to do all three of these options. I just wanted to give you some different ideas, but you choose which one you like the best and do the ones that you think fit in the best with your taste. I did like how this chunky yarn one ended up as well, however, and so I'm glad I tried it. So I, again, am just hot gluing it, wrapping it and hot gluing it around the outside of the pumpkin. And you can just kind of squish your yarn together to make sure that you're filling it in as closely as you need. And another good tip would be paint the pumpkin the same color as your yarn, so that you, like for this, it probably would have been better for me to paint the pumpkin cream if I would have thought, you know, ahead of time. But since I was already painted gray, I just went with it, and it worked okay as well. So hot glue around the top of the pumpkin. And as I did this, I was kind of keeping in mind that I'm going to put the stem back on top. So I didn't want to glue right in the center with the yarn. I kind of saved the center for the stem, and then I just hot glued everywhere else. And then once I add my stem, my plan was to just hot glue the yarn together and kind of seal it closed around the stem. So now that it's completely covered, I'm just going to take a pumpkin stem and I'm just going to put that right on top of the board in the center of the pumpkin. And then as I mentioned, I'm just going to hot glue around the stem now. The yarn was kind of unglued. Now I'm going to glue it down right around the stem so you get a nice clean look on the top of your pumpkin. Embellish it how you want. And then we're going to finish off the sweater pumpkin. So I'm going to use a real stem again. I really like how that ended up looking on these pumpkins. You could definitely choose birch logs or cinnamon sticks or something else for your stem. I liked how the real stems look, so that's what I went with. And then I'm just going to use some macrame cord here, tie that around the stem, and then I decided to use this little mustard ribbon to embellish the front of the sweater pumpkin. And I just had these little cream colored brads that were used for card making or something, and I just stuck those onto the ribbon. And then I'm just going to hot glue that on to the center of the pumpkin. And then to finish it off, I'm just going to take some twine. I'm going to wrap it around the pumpkin stem. And I had these leaves that I actually found in our front yard, and I sealed them with polyurethane to make them a little more durable. And I'm just going to use that. I love that color and I wanted to preserve it, so I sealed it, and now I'm going to hot glue it on the back of the pumpkin. And then I'm going to take these little fall cutout. I'm going to cut off the welcome part, and I'm just going to use the fall part on the bottom. I'm going to cut the letters apart, and then I'm just going to take a little bit of the antiquing wax, and I'm going to rub that all around the letters so that they're a little darker. And then I'll just line the letters up on the ribbon and then hot glue them into place. And again, I'm just taking antiquing wax and I'm going to rub it on my letters to give them a little more of a rustic feel. Then I'm going to hot glue them back onto place, and I took a little bit of a sandpaper and rubbed the edges. And I did end up switching the A out for a little leaf just to give it more of a fall vibe. And then I took this vintage looking ribbon and I just put that across the top of this pumpkin. And here are the final pumpkins. They're so cute, unique, really high-end looking. You barely recognize them, I think, from the original. So I really like how these turned out. Let me know what you think of them down below. Now the next pumpkins we're going to be working on are quilted pumpkins. When I saw these quilted pumpkins pot holders at the Dollar Tree, I knew I had to have them and I knew exactly what I was going to do with them. So I started by removing the tags, and then these little hanger things at the top. I use a seam ripper, but it's not necessary. You can just cut them off. we're going to cover up that top portion of the pumpkin so it doesn't matter. But we're going to cut off that little hanger, and then we're going to just take some lace or ribbon, and we're going to make these look like vintage pumpkins. So I had this pretty creamish, beigeish color lace, and I just cut out the edges of the lace the same like the pumpkin, just mirroring the pumpkin shape. And then I'm just going to hot glue these onto the tops of both of the pot holders. And this is going to be the outside of the pumpkin. So we're just going to put these two pot holders together, and we're going to have a cute little quilted pumpkin, which is super sweet. It's vintage looking, and I think you're going to really love it. So once I cut the lace out, then like I mentioned, I just took hot glue and glued it on top of the pumpkin. And then we're just going to take our hot glue gun and we're going to hot glue these pot holders together, just making sure that the lace sides are facing out. And we're going to form like a pocket for our pumpkins, and I'm just going to stuff it with polyfill just to give it a little bit more of a pumpkin look. And then we're going to use a stem on the top of the pot holders just to close in our little pumpkin. And again, I'm using these birch logs. I got them at Hobby Lobby. And then I covered both sides. I had those scraps of birch bark that I pick up on the lawn, and I'm just going to use that on the other side so that the birch is on both sides of my pumpkin. And instead of using polyfill, you could also stuff this with some fall florals and have it be kind of like a hanging basket, you know, for floral picks or something for fall. I thought that would be cute too. But I had this project in mind for such a long time that I wanted to kind of finish it and do it how I was thinking, which is more like this, just closing it up and then embellishing the top with leaves or pumpkin curls and twine. And so that's what I did with this project, but there's a lot of different options, and they're just fun, a nice fun base, and you can really craft some beautiful things in no time, just starting with these quilted pot holders. So I like how this turned out. Again, you could use fall florals or other things inside the pumpkin as well. This next welcome round sign is one of my other favorites for this year, but I am just going to take this round canvas, and they have these at the Dollar Tree for $3, and I just traced around half of the circle with some black and white scrap paper, and you can use paint instead of paper if you wanted, but we're just going to color or cover half of our circle with black or a darker color, and I'm going to do these black and white stripes. I just like how that looks on here, and we're going to make a round welcome sign for our front door or to hang in the entryway of your house. And we're just going to Mod Podge the paper onto our round, and then I'm just going to take a coordinating ribbon, and again I'm going to use this mustard, which I just love this year, and I'm going to hot glue that on the edge of the paper just to give it a border. And then I'm going to leave the other side of the sign white. So we're going to have these 3 different areas of our sign with different colors. And then we're going to take one of these wooden round frame hoop things that I found at the Dollar Tree, and I cut this one with my miter saw so that it actually has an opening, and then it's going to fit around that round canvas. But before I do that, I am going to use a little bit of the antiquing wax and darken up that round frame again. And then in order to fill in the area where I cut, I'm going to use a second one of these hoops, but before I do that, I'm just going to staple some twine on the top as a holder, and then I'm going to put little marks on the round frame that I need to add a little section from, and then I'm just going to take that outside and cut in that little spot, and then I'm going to glue that little spot on my frame where the hole is on the previous frame. And I have to do that because these frames are a little smaller than the round canvas, so that's why I'm doing this. And this way it fits nicely around the round canvas, so you would need 2 of these if you're going to do this. You could also use twine. That would look just as nice. I like these frames though, and how they make clear corners or edges in this case, and I just took my tube of E6000. It was a little old here, but I smeared it around the canvas. And then I'm going to just attach the frame to it. It's a little bit more durable glue and it will hold it a little better. The last step is just to embellish this sign. So we're going to use fall floral picks, and we're going to use just some fall greenery and pumpkins, and we're just going to fill it in. And I just kind of like to play around with it until I get what I like, I guess. And so I found this little pumpkin from Hobby Lobby last year at the end of season. I know it was less than $1, so I'm going to put that on there. And then I'm just going to add some little floral things that I have around my table here. I tried a lot of different things and then just put the things on that I like the best with the hot glue. And then I did want to show you how you can add words without using a Cricut. You could definitely cut out words again on the Cricut, but I wanted to show you again today how to use words that are ready, like from the Dollar Tree. So this was a welcome metal word that came from the Dollar Tree, and I just painted over it with black, and then I'm just going to hot glue that onto the side of the sign. So you wouldn't have to have a Cricut in order to do this. You can just use these letters from the Dollar Tree, but just paint them so it almost looks like black vinyl. And I just hot glue that onto the other side, and I like this dry orange on there as well. Here you can see my completed sign. I love how it turned out. I think it's just so pretty and really modern looking. Let me know what you think in the comments below. This next project has been around for a while, but I have never done this before, and I've never done it using these Dollar Tree books. So these were actually in the Halloween section, things I would never pick up really to use how they are, but I'm going to transform them and make them blend in with my style. So I'm just going to take the books, I'm going to trace the shape of the book onto a piece of scrapbook paper, and then I'm going to cut that out and Mod Podge it on each of the books. Now, one thing I didn't do that I think probably would have been good is to paint these first. So just painting them in white or a neutral color so that the edges don't stick out beyond like where the paper is. You could also use a little bit of hot glue on all the edges so you don't see the edges, or make the paper a little bit larger so that it hangs over the edge. Any of those options would have been better than what I did, which is cut the paper a little bit short and then had to go back and kind of fix it. But I started by just taking Mod Podge, rubbing it across the top of the books, and then and I just repeated this for both of the other books. Again, I used one that was kind of neutral brown and white, and then I used one that was a little more yellowish, and I was just thinking of candy corn and how those colors coordinate so well together. I figured they looked pretty nice with this stack of books as well. And then once I had Mod Podged all the scrapbook paper on the books, then I just put some paint on top, like a paint can on top of the 3 books to hold it down so that they could dry. My last step was to embellish these books, so I used ribbon and twine and beads and this little tassel and just wrapped it around the book, and then I hot glued the ribbon and lace into place, and here's my stack of books. So beautiful for fall. I chose not to add words, but of course you could do that as well. This next craft is so easy. I think you'll be a little surprised at how cool it is. So we're just going to take this Dollar Tree placemat. Has a reminder to give thanks, such an important thing to remember to do. I was just reading about giving thanks and giving glory to God, just things that we want to always be doing. So I want a reminder of that in my house now and all throughout the year. So I'm going to use this placemat, and I'm just going to take my embroidery hoops that fit just around that give thanks message, and I'm just going to place it in my embroidery hoop, and I'm going to tighten the outside of the hoop, and then I'm just going to cut off the extra fabric. Now they did have other placemats as well. If you don't want or don't like necessarily this one, there was, I think, some pumpkin ones and maybe a little pickup truck one, so you wouldn't have to necessarily use the same one that I'm using. I like the message, so I'm using this one. And then I just added a little bit of floral greens in the corner down there. You wouldn't have to do that. And then I felt I just wanted to dress it up a little bit more, so I took some jute twine and I just formed a wider border around the edge of the embroidery hoop. Just hot glued that into place. So simple, but it's a really pretty design, and it looks as if someone hand embroidered this and gave it to you as a present. So so simple and sweet for fall. I love the message of this placemat, and I love how it can be transformed into a wall hanging. And you can also use it as a pillow. That was actually what I was originally planning to do, but I decided that I wanted to hang up on the wall, and this is a super easy and cute way to do that. Now this next project is also pretty easy, and it's really ideal for a centerpiece on your table for fall or Thanksgiving. I started with one of these Dollar Tree trays, and then I had this faux wood, I guess, scrapbook paper, and I'm just going to line the tray with the scrapbook paper, and we're going to try to make it look like the tray is wooden. Another option I thought of after making this video was to use some of the wallpaper, like the self-adhesive wallpaper that the Dollar Tree has. They actually have the faux wood, and I saw this week they actually had some herringbone wallpaper, which I think would look really cute in this tray. So basically you're just going to cover the tray with the scrapbook paper or with the wallpaper, and we're going to give the tray kind of a faux wood look. Now these trays I thought were actually pretty good quality. They're pretty heavy tray, and this could definitely be used once or more than once. If you just had it for a wedding or something, this would be an easy centerpiece, but also it could be used from year to year because it is actually pretty well made. So what I did is just cut around the tray with my scrapbook paper, and I just kind of folded the paper around the tray, and then I cut pieces based on where I made the indentations. And then I just decided I was going to Mod Podge it again into place. I've been really into Mod Podge lately, but it is so easy to use and so versatile, so I think it's great for crafting. So I Mod Podged the back of the scrapbook paper and then just lined up the wood on the tray, and then that's going to give us a really cute higher end looking tray. Then just wait for the Mod Podge to dry, and you can seal it on top as well if you wanted to. I saw these little candle holders from the Dollar Tree, so I added those to the tray along with these floral picks that were actually from Walmart for $1.24, and then just kind of centered them on the tray around the candles, and then just stuck in some pumpkins and leaves around the candles. I also got these battery operated candles from the Dollar Tree for $1.25. I love real candles, but in a season with little kids, I don't think that they work best in our house right now. But this is so cute, so pretty, so romantic for fall, Thanksgiving, for your table or mantelpiece. It just is really easy, so easy to put together, and just beautiful. Now this next one is another easy craft. It's a dried floral wreath or flower wreath. And we're actually going to use that frame that we stole that piece of MDF out of, and I just taped it with some masking tape to close it up so that it's a ring. You could use an embroidery hoop as well. The Dollar Tree does sell those now, or you can get them at a thrift store or rummage sale pretty cheap. And we're just going to take some twine here, and we're going to wrap it around the outside of our loop here, and just do it multiple times to kind of form a band going through the center of the frame. And then we're just going to take some floral pieces. Now you can use live ones that have been dried out, or you can use artificial ones, whichever one suits you the best. And we're just going to kind of place them through the center of this twine, and it's going to be a really simplistic looking wreath. And so I just chose some different floral pieces and just tried putting it through the center of this twine, and you can just play around and figure out which options you like the best. I really liked this burnt orange umber type color, um, and so I used that, and then I cut off some greens, and then I matched it on the other side. And then you can take your twine and wrap it a little bit more around these pieces once they're on, and then just tie a knot on the back side. And that's all there is to making this modern and really cute wreath. You could add a word to it. This harvest one was from the Dollar Tree. You could put that on there, or something similar as well. But I kind of liked it just with the dried flowers, or the artificial flowers in this case. And then I just took, again, some wooden beads, and I twisted that on the top of that little loop, or what, hoop, I guess. And use that as the hanger for this little wreath. Now I realize not everyone will like the simplicity of this wreath, but I think it's just really pretty. You could again add some words to it if you like a little bit of extra, but it's simple by design, and I kind of like it like that. Here it is finished. Now I just have to find a place to hang it. Finally, we made it to number 10. If you're still watching, you're awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate you. Today we're going to be using these two pumpkins, which are MDF pumpkins from the Dollar Tree, and we're going to be transforming them into a three-dimensional pumpkin. So we're going to start by removing this cardboard orange sections of the pumpkin on the top, and I just used a rag to kind of loosen that up on the areas that were hard to scrape off, and we're just going to scrape that off so we can have a flat surface to work with. And then I used a spatula a little bit just to scrape it so that we had a nice smooth surface. And then I cut one of the pumpkins in half with my miter saw, and I'm just going to attach the pumpkins on both sides of this one pumpkin so that we have a three-dimensional pumpkin going on. I think this is really cute. There's so much potential with this craft. You can use paint, you can use paper, you can use that wallpaper that the Dollar Tree sells to cover these pumpkins. I was in the mood to paint, so after attaching the pumpkin to itself with this wood glue, and you can just hold this in place for a while. I think it's recommended 20 to 30 minutes, so I just held it in place for quite a while, and then I used this little clamp on the top of the pumpkin until that wood glue was completely dried. And then I took some of this acrylic paint and sand, and I mixed them together to create a paint with texture. And then I just layered that paint all across this pumpkin. You could definitely use chalk paint, and then after that white paint was on, I actually went back with a terracotta colored paint and went over the cream. I decided I wanted a little bit more color, and I'm not 100% sure I love this terracotta color. Let me know down below what you think of it. It's okay in my book, but we're going to go with it for today just so that I can show you how I redid these pumpkins. I actually kind of liked the cream after I painted on this terracotta color, so I might go back to the cream, but then I took some antiquing wax and I just brushed it on the edges of my pumpkin and then down the center where there's a section kind of break. And then I took some corn husk and I covered the stem of those pumpkins and then attached some leaves with hot glue on the sides of the stem. Now, again, the sky's the limit with this. You can use any type of embellishment that you want. I added a couple leather leaves on top of those green leaves just to give it some dimension, and then I tied a raffia bow around the pumpkin stem. You can add pumpkin curls or anything else you want to embellish it. Then I took some of the nautical rope from the Dollar Tree and I just followed the outline of the pumpkin down the centers and sides, but I tried to leave the nautical rope off the bottom of the pumpkin and just wrapped it around the edges of the inside edges kind of each section. I thought to do this after I had already glued the nautical rope on part way, so I kind of created little sections on the bottom. If you were starting, this project and you like the nautical rope, I definitely would recommend doing the whole length of the pumpkin before cutting. But this is how this little pumpkin turned out. I do like the texture and the three-dimensional view of the pumpkin. I'm not 100% sure about the color, but I think the nautical rope really helped. Let me know what you think, and let me know which craft project is your favorite. I like to know what you guys like so I can keep creating videos that are relevant to you and that you enjoy doing. Otherwise, thanks for sticking with me. If you want to see future videos, go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. Thanks for being here, and happy fall!